My sister accused me of hitting her, and my parents pressed charges without even hearing my side. I was 17. I lost my scholarship, my team, my best friend. Last month, she finally admitted, I just wanted to see if they'd believe me. They did. Now it's my turn. And I won't need to lie to ruin her life. This happened 8 years ago, but I remember every detail like it was yesterday. I was 17, a senior in high school, and everything was going perfectly. I had a full ride to state university on a wrestling scholarship, a 3.9 GPA, and I was team captain. My girlfriend Sarah and I had been together for 2 years, and my best friend Marcus and I were planning to room together in college. Life was good. My sister Emma was 15 then, and we'd always had a typical sibling relationship, some fighting, some joking around, mostly just existing in the same house without much drama. She was the dramatic one in the family, always crying about something, always the victim in every story she told. But I never thought she'd go this far. It was a Tuesday night in March. I was in my room studying for AP Biology when I heard Emma scream from downstairs. Not an unusual occurrence, she screamed about everything from finding a spider to running out of her favorite shampoo. I ignored it and kept studying. 20 minutes later, my parents burst into my room. My mom was crying, my dad looked angrier than I'd ever seen him. Emma was behind them with what looked like the beginning of a bruise on her cheek and tears streaming down her face. How could you hit your sister? My mom demanded. I looked up from my textbook, genuinely confused. What? I've been up here studying for the past 2 hours. What are you talking about? Don't lie to us. My dad shouted. Emma told us everything. How you grabbed her, how you slapped her because she wouldn't let you use her laptop. I stared at them in disbelief. That's insane. I haven't even seen Emma tonight. I've been right here. Look at her face. My mom interrupted, pointing at Emma's cheek. Look what you did to her. Emma was sobbing dramatically, playing the victim perfectly. He said if I told anyone, he'd do worse, she whispered between sobs. I'm so scared of him. The thing is, I had needed to use a laptop that night. Mine had crashed earlier, and I had a paper due the next day. But I'd used my phone to email my teacher asking for an extension instead of bothering Emma. I had the email timestamp to prove it, but my parents weren't interested in hearing my side. We're calling the police, my dad announced. This behavior is unacceptable. Dad, please, just listen to me for 1 second. No. We're done listening to your lies. Pack a bag. You're not staying in this house tonight. The police came. They took photos of Emma's face. They interviewed her while I sat in the back of a patrol car, trying to figure out how my life had just imploded. The officer was sympathetic but explained that with physical evidence and a witness statement, they had to make an arrest. I was booked for domestic assault. At 17, still a minor, but the charge was serious enough that it would follow me into adulthood. The next morning, everything started falling apart like dominoes. First, news traveled fast in our small town. By the time I got to school, after spending the night at Marcus's house, everyone was staring. The story had already been twisted. Some people said I'd beaten Emma unconscious, others said it was about drugs. None of it was true, but truth doesn't matter when you're the topic of high school gossip. Then Coach Williams called me into his office. I'm sorry, son, he said, not meeting my eyes. The university called. They're withdrawing the scholarship offer pending the outcome of your case. 8 years of wrestling. 8 years of training, dieting, sacrificing everything for the sport. Gone in one phone call. Sarah broke up with me that afternoon. I can't be with someone who hits girls, she said, and no amount of pleading or explaining could change her mind. She'd already made up her mind based on rumors. Marcus was the worst betrayal of all. My best friend since middle school, the guy I'd shared everything with, wouldn't even look at me. Dude, I can't be associated with this, he said when I tried to talk to him. My parents will kill me, and I'm not risking my own college prospects. The court case was a nightmare. My public defender was overwhelmed and barely prepared. Emma's story was consistent, too consistent, I realized years later, and she had the physical evidence of the bruise. I had nothing but my word, and apparently, that wasn't worth much. The plea deal was probation, anger management classes, and community service. My lawyer said it was the best we could do, that if we went to trial and lost, I'd face real jail time. So I took it, even though accepting the plea made me look guilty to everyone who mattered. College was out of the question. No scholarship, no savings, my parents refused to help, and no decent school would accept me with an assault charge. I ended up working construction and taking night classes at community college. My parents never apologized. They never questioned Emma's story. Sunday dinners became tense affairs where I was treated like the family criminal who'd been graciously allowed back into the house. Emma milked the victim role for months, getting extra attention and sympathy from everyone. I moved out as soon as I turned 18 and built my life from scratch. It took me 6 years to finish my degree in computer science, working full-time and going to school part-time. I started my own software consulting business and slowly, painstakingly, rebuilt my reputation and my life. But I never forgot. And I never forgave. Last month, I was at my cousin's wedding. Emma, now 23, had had quite a few drinks. We were both outside on the hotel balcony, and for the first time in years, we were alone together. She was going through a messy breakup and feeling sorry for herself. You know what's funny? She said, slurring slightly. Everyone always believed me about everything when we were kids. Yeah, I said carefully. You were always good at getting sympathy. She laughed bitterly. Remember when I told Mom and Dad you hit me? My blood went cold. What about it? I never told you why I did it, did I? She took another sip of her wine. It wasn't even about the laptop. I wanted to see if they'd believe me over you. Like an experiment. I kept my voice steady. An experiment? You were always the perfect one. Perfect grades, perfect athlete, perfect son. I wanted to see if I could knock you down a peg. And it worked better than I ever imagined, she giggled drunkenly. I didn't think it would go so far, but once it started, I couldn't take it back without getting in trouble myself. So you just let it happen? Let me lose everything? She shrugged. You bounced back fine. Look at you now, successful business, nice apartment. It all worked out. She stumbled back inside before I could respond, leaving me alone with the confirmation of what I'd suspected for 8 years. It had all been a lie. A cruel, calculated experiment that destroyed my teenage years and cost me countless opportunities. That night, I made a decision. Emma had taught me something valuable. Actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences take years to arrive. Unlike her, I wouldn't need to lie or fabricate evidence. Emma had given me plenty of real material to work with over the years. I spent 2 weeks doing research. Emma had built herself a nice little life as a social media influencer with about 50,000 followers on Instagram and TikTok. She posted about mental health awareness, body positivity, and surviving family trauma. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd turned her fake victim story into part of her brand, occasionally referencing her abusive brother in posts about overcoming adversity. She also had a serious boyfriend, David, who she'd been dating for 2 years. He was a doctor, came from a good family, and based on her recent posts, he was about to propose. She'd found a job at a nonprofit that worked with abuse survivors, trading on her fabricated credentials as someone who'd overcome domestic violence. Everything she'd built was constructed on the foundation of her lie about me. It was time to remove that foundation. Phase 1 was simple: documentation. I'd kept everything from my case, court documents, police reports, witness statements. I also had something Emma didn't know about: my phone records from that night, showing the exact time I'd emailed my teacher about the extension, proving I'd been in my room when she claimed I was attacking her. More importantly, I'd been recording our conversation at the wedding. One-party consent state, completely legal, and I had her full confession on audio. Phase 2 was research. I dug into Emma's life over the past few years and found some interesting information. She'd been fired from 2 previous jobs for lying, once for claiming she had a degree she didn't have, and once for falsifying expense reports. She'd also been caught cheating in college, something she'd managed to keep quiet from most people. I found her college disciplinary records through a friend who worked in administration. I found the expense report incident through LinkedIn connections who'd worked at her previous company. Everything was documented, verifiable, and completely legal to obtain. Phase 3 was strategic release. I started with David, her boyfriend. I created an anonymous email account and sent him a carefully crafted message with just enough information to make him curious. I didn't mention the assault case, that would come later. Instead, I focused on the pattern of dishonesty. I thought you should know about Emma's history of deception, the email read. Check her college transcripts, she was suspended for academic dishonesty in 2019. Also look into why she was really fired from Morrison & Associates last year. It wasn't budget cuts like she told you. I included just enough specific details to be credible without revealing my source. A week later, Emma posted a cryptic Instagram story about people trying to sabotage her happiness. David had clearly confronted her about something. Phase 4 was her employer. The nonprofit she worked for took integrity very seriously. They had to, given their work with vulnerable populations. I sent them an anonymous tip about inconsistencies in her employment application, specifically her claim to be a survivor advocate with personal experience. I included a link to some of her old social media posts where she talked about her wonderful, supportive family, directly contradicting the story she'd told to get hired. I also included the audio recording of her confession, with a note explaining the context. The investigation took 3 weeks. Emma was terminated for falsifying her application and misrepresenting her qualifications and personal history. She posted a long, rambling Instagram story about being persecuted for speaking her truth and powerful people trying to silence survivors. The comment section was brutal. Her followers were starting to ask questions about her inconsistent stories. Phase 5 was the nuclear option, full public exposure. I created a detailed blog post titled The Truth About Emma Morrison, How a False Accusation Destroyed My Life. I laid out everything chronologically, with documentation. The police report from 2016. My phone records proving I was in my room. Screenshots of her social media posts over the years claiming to be an abuse survivor. Her employment history of deception. And finally, the audio recording of her confession. I didn't post it immediately. First, I sent it to her directly. Emma, I wrote in the email. I think it's time we had an honest conversation about what happened 8 years ago. I've attached something I think you should read. You have 48 hours to publicly admit what you did and apologize, or this goes live on every platform I can find. Your choice. She called me within an hour, hysterical. You can't do this to me. She screamed. It will ruin everything. Like you ruined everything for me? I replied calmly. That was different. We were kids. You were 15, not 5. You knew exactly what you were doing. Please, she begged. I'm sorry, okay? I'm really, really sorry. I was young and stupid and I made a mistake. But this will destroy my life. It should, I said. Actions have consequences, Emma. You taught me that. She tried bargaining, pleading, threatening. She said she'd tell our parents I was harassing her. I reminded her that harassment requires lies, and everything I had was true. The 48 hours passed. She didn't make any public admission. I published the blog post. The response was immediate and devastating. Her story went viral, but not in the way she was used to. #EmmaLied started trending on Twitter. Her Instagram followers dropped from 50K to 12K in 3 days. Her TikTok account was suspended after mass reports for spreading misinformation. David broke up with her publicly, posting his own statement about being deceived and manipulated. Several of her former friends shared their own stories about Emma's lies over the years. Apparently, I wasn't the only one she'd deceived. The nonprofit she'd worked for issued a statement distancing themselves from her and reaffirming their commitment to actual survivors. Other organizations in the field shared the statement, effectively blacklisting her from the industry she tried to build her career in. But the best part was our parents. They called me after the story exploded online. For the first time in 8 years, my mother apologized. We should have listened to you, she said, crying. We should have believed our own son. My father was harder to reach, but he eventually came around. I failed you, he admitted. I let my anger cloud my judgment, and I didn't protect you the way I should have. Emma tried to control the narrative, posting her own response claiming I was continuing the cycle of abuse and that her confession had been taken out of context. But the audio was clear, and the evidence was overwhelming. Every attempt she made to defend herself only made things worse. She moved back in with our parents after David kicked her out. She can't find work in her field. Her social media career is over. Her friend group has largely abandoned her. The last I heard, she was working at a retail store and seeing a therapist, finally dealing with the consequences of her actions. People ask me if I feel guilty about what I did to Emma. The answer is no. I didn't lie about her. I didn't fabricate evidence. I didn't manipulate anyone into believing false stories. I simply revealed the truth about who she really was, something she'd spent years hiding behind a carefully constructed facade. Emma destroyed my teenage years, cost me opportunities I'll never get back, and damaged relationships that never recovered. She did it all for an experiment, to see if she could knock her successful brother down a peg. She succeeded, and she was perfectly comfortable letting me suffer the consequences of her lie for the rest of my life. But here's what she didn't understand: the truth has a way of surfacing eventually. And when it does, the people who built their lives on lies find out just how unstable that foundation really was. I spent 8 years rebuilding my life from the wreckage she created. Now she gets to do the same thing, except she'll be rebuilding from the wreckage of her own making. The difference is, I had to rebuild after being innocent of what I was accused of. She has to rebuild after being guilty of exactly what she's been exposed for. I'd say that's justice. Emma taught me that family will believe lies if they're told convincingly enough. She taught me that reputation matters more than truth. She taught me that actions have consequences, but sometimes those consequences are delayed. Most importantly, she taught me that revenge is a dish best served cold, with documentation, and through the patient application of truth. I don't need to lie to ruin someone's life. I just need to be more patient than they are careful. And Emma was never very careful with the truth. Update, posted 3 weeks after original story. A lot of people have asked for an update, so here it is. Emma attempted suicide 2 weeks ago. She's alive and getting help, and despite everything, I'm glad she's okay. I never wanted her dead, I wanted her to face consequences for her actions, and there's a difference. Some people in the comments have said I went too far, that I should have just confronted her privately or found a way to clear my name without destroying hers. To those people, I'd ask, what would you have done? She had 8 years to come clean on her own. 8 years to apologize. 8 years to try to make things right. She chose not to. The confession only came out because she was drunk and thought it was funny. Even then, she showed no remorse for what she'd put me through. She was more concerned about her breakup than about the life she'd destroyed with her lie. I'm not responsible for Emma's mental health. I'm not responsible for the choices she made as a 15-year-old, and I'm not responsible for the choices she made as a 23-year-old when she doubled down on those lies instead of coming clean. What I am responsible for is my own life and my own truth. For 8 years, I carried the burden of her lie. Now she can carry the burden of the truth. Our parents are in family therapy now, trying to process their role in all of this. Emma is getting the help she needs. I'm continuing to build my life and my business. Some stories don't have clean endings where everyone learns their lesson and becomes a better person. Sometimes justice is messy and painful and leaves scars on everyone involved. But it's still justice. And after 8 years of living with the consequences of someone else's lie, I finally have my truth back. That's enough for me. Dr. Sister falsely accused me of assault at 17, ruined my life for her sick experiment. 8 years later, she confessed it was all a lie. Now I'm systematically dismantling everything she holds dear, and unlike her, I don't need to fabricate evidence.